speaking about things and situations that didn't need to happen, but it happened anyway. That reminds me of like when I was in grade school, man, and I was at a school dance, and you know me, like I'm like despite my I don't know maybe balls to the wall kind of personality. I'm a bit recluse, like a bit of a shy introvert. So like I was being a wallflower and everything like that, and I was just minding my own business. And here comes Joey Donaldson, like dancing down the floor and seeing me, and he comes up to me and he starts taunting me and he starts saying, "Man, you're just a wallflower."
Well, at least I like you.
And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcast on all sides of planet Earth. And the ways that we measure that distinction is we travel to Ukraine and we go all the way to Uganda. This podcast is called Hey, Listen to This. And it is hosted by two dashingly good-looking men who share the same middle name. I'm the one. I'm the only. I'm the one who, as weird as this is going to sound, is more relating to, the bad guys in stories as he gets older, as opposed to more of the good guys, Ryan James Kearns.
And I am the one, the only, I guess it really depends on what you call the good guys and the bad guys and where you're getting your sources from, Matthew James Durzik. And for those of you who don't know what it is that we do here on Hey, Listen to This, every week me and Ryan gather together to talk about music. And we pick an album, we talk about it track by track, line by line, note by note, pick out the tracks we like, what we don't like. And the reason we're talking about an album is, one, because we like music. We love music, I would even say. But also, it may have to do with an artist we like, or a topic that's relevant, or a sort of theme that we're doing. And last week, Ryan, it was your turn to pick an album. What is it that we talked about?
We dove into Mitski's 2026 release, which is entitled Nothing's About to Happen to Me. And, my thoughts about doing that review, one, in hindsight, apparently we missed a whole bunch of lore with that album, because apparently that album is a quasi concept album. Like the woman that's talked about in that album throughout the whole record is like the same character, which is interesting to say the least. But in terms of zooming out big picture, very happy that we did the review, because like I said in that review, Mitski is one of those artists who I never really gave the time or day to, and that's nothing bad against her. It's just her music really never stuck to me on first or second or even third listens of her records. But there was something about that album that we covered that really stuck with me, and I'm glad that we did the review. So, how about you, Matthew? Are you a converted Mitski stan? Are you about to tattoo on your wrists, Mitski can run over me with a dump truck and I'll be a happy man?
I don't think I've quite reached that level yet, but I at least know where the dump truck is, and I have the address written down just in case. Because that album was a very enjoyable listen. Because again, I had no idea what I was getting into with Mitski, and even after listening to the album, I still don't know if I'm 100% understanding of her entire personality or her entire style. But on its own, I very much enjoyed the album last week. Again, it has some really, really nice songs on there. And for those of you who are wondering what songs those might be and what our overall thoughts are, you can go back and listen to that episode when you're done listening to this one. Or right now, we're not going to stop you. We don't control you. We're not the government. So yeah, it was very much a nice review. And I was glad to talk about it with you, man, because again, I had not given Mitski the time of day either, but it was for different circumstances.
So, with that being said, we've officially, we're moving on from Mitski, and we can't do another Mitski review because, one, I think that might actually break our rotation, and two, well, I mean, for the dear listener out there who is just, reading the episode title, they're reading a episode title that does not include the insert album name by Mitski album review. So without any further ado, Matthew, we must progress on in the year of our Lord 2026. Why don't you hit the listener with the overview and the introduction about what are we talking about this week on Hey Listen to This?
This week on Hey Listen to This, we are going back to the year of 2014, and because the weather is allegedly starting to get nicer, and I say allegedly because I don't know about you, Ryan, but I woke up to temperatures in the 20s this morning just for it to get into the 50s by the time I got back from work. I figured, you know what? Nice weather means outdoors, means getting out and doing things, and that means a little bit of concert season. So I thought back to a couple of concerts that I had been to over the years, and I had to choose between two bands based on the venues they performed at, and you chose the Smiling Moose in the South Side section of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And thus we are talking about the band Purple and their debut album from 2014 entitled 409. Now, some of you might be wondering, hey, Matt, what is a purple? I don't know what a purple is. I don't remember that name coming up in the discussion of Roy G. Biv when I was in grade school. Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is a story that is relatively brief, unfortunately, because, spoiler alert, I'm just going to say it right now, the band's not together anymore. This is a band that is no longer together. So what I'm about to give you is the very Cliff Notes version of who the band was, who they were, what they did, and where they are at now, based on the information I could find, which, for the record, was not easy. Purple was a band that hailed from Southeast Texas, forming in the 2010s. The Grunge-Punk trio, as they describe themselves on their Bandcamp page, started out with the trio of singer-slash-drummer Hannah Brewer, bassist Tyler Smitty Smith, and guitarist Taylor Busby. Together they started making songs and uploading them to YouTube with videos, full videos, not lyric videos like they have nowadays, or visualizers as we see nowadays, but full-on choreographed, shot for the sake of visual media videos. And they did so in anticipation for their debut album 409, which is named after what, Ryan?
I'm gonna guess an area code.
And you are absolutely correct. It is the area code from which they hail down in Texas. So, several of their songs got popular on YouTube, and they played locally, and then all of a sudden they start touring the United States throughout 2014, and then throughout 2015 and 2016 as well. One of those shows landed them in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the Smiling Moose, and we will get to that in a little bit. But after their release of 409, they released two more albums, one in 2015 entitled Silence and Remorse, and their final album in 2016 entitled Bodacious. During this time, bassist Tyler Smith was replaced by Joe Canariato, and soon afterwards, the band disbanded. And, according to Redditor dry_condition_2110, in a post released 3 years ago to Reddit, Taylor Busby is now making guitar pedals, Hannah has become a realtor, and Joe has become the merch table guy for the band Toadies. So that is it. That is the Cliff Notes history of the band Purple as to what they did for a few years in the mid-2010s when they were playing their mix of grunge punk or, I'll save some descriptors for later on. So, that being said, Ryan, I will ask you first, did you have any experience with this band before today's episode? And if not, what was your anticipation of what to expect?
So, actually, prior to actually listening to the record for the purposes of one, just spinning it so I can get like a feel for it before I take like detailed notes. prior to doing that, I had no idea what this group was. I was just like, but I was excited because, like, you know me, I'm always game for trying out something new. However, with that being said, once I listened to the record like once or twice, especially on the first like detailed note taking, like, listen through, there was a track on the record, specifically Beach Buddy, that really rang a familiarity bell in the back of my skull. And if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken, but I'm not. I believe I'm not mistaken that you might have shared that song with me at some point in some capacity. It might have been when you were over my house and we were throwing stuff up on the TV, be like, "Hey, check out this music here," because I was just like, I remember that chorus for some reason. So, and then like outside of that song specifically, like I couldn't tell you like another thing about this group here.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm pretty sure you're right about that scenario. I don't remember when I did that, but I'm just going to assume that that's what I did because we've had many nights where we're just looking through stuff and somewhere in the back of my mind it's like, oh yeah, that. You just throw it up on the TV and be like, hey, check this out. Hey, listen to this. So, that being said, my experience with the band Purple is very much unlike many of the others that we have discussed here on the show, because a lot of times you'll hear me say, oh, I found them in Rolling Stone, or hey, I found them, going through my old collection, or I used to listen to them a lot on the radio when I was a kid. None of that applies to Purple. The reason I even know this band exists is because I saw them live. That was my first introduction to the band Purple, was seeing them at a live show where they were headlining. Now, you may wonder, why would you go to a show headlined by a band you've never heard of before? Well, it's because one of the bands opening up for this band Purple was a band that Ryan and I are familiar with called The Gentlemen. And The Gentlemen, in this stage, were a trio of some of our former classmates from Geneva College. In this particular case, I believe the lineup was Matt Neal on drums, Ian Taylor on bass and vocals, and also Dave Parker on guitar. I believe that was the lineup for this particular show at the Smiling Moose in Pittsburgh on this night. And I want to say the year was either 2015 or 2016. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to go back and look that up. But I do remember that it was The Gentlemen. I remember it was the band Huzzah, and it was the band Purple who was headlining. Now, Ryan, I have a question for you. Have you ever been to the Smiling Moose in Pittsburgh?
I have. I have fond... Well, I don't want to say fond memories of that venue, and I mean no disrespect to that. But one thing that you might allude to is the fact that the acoustics in that specific venue are... They're pretty tight. They're pretty tight. It's like being trapped in a vacuum.
I mean, if that's the way you want to call it, all right. I would say it's more like being trapped in the back of a moving van. Because here's the thing about Purple, and I will say this firsthand before you actually get into the songs themselves. Purple is a very loud band. They are a very intentionally loud band. Their guitars are loud, their bass is loud, and their drums and vocals are very loud. None of which I have a problem with, but unfortunately, and I don't know if it was just the way it was set up or just how loud they were being, but that night, the Smiling Moose, I remember Huzzah sounding fine, I remember the Gentlemen sounding fine. I could not understand a single thing that Purple was singing or playing. I just remember just noise, 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 and noise, to the point where it actually like started affecting like my digestive system. It was like, I need to get out of here. Which isn't to say I thought they did bad. If I had to like grade them, I would put like a non-applicable or withdraw my opinion, because like I couldn't do it. Like I could not properly justify how they sounded that night, just because the acoustics were so ping-pongy and loud and just clashing. But because of that, I figured, you know what? I don't think the rock gods or the acoustic gods gave me or them a fair shake. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go online, I'm going to find an album of theirs, and I'm going to give it a listen. So I picked up 409 and gave it a listen. And it's one of those albums that I remember listening to, liking, and then, as we have said many times on the show, put in the freezer for future listening. So landed in the freezer, and then recently, when I was making the move from my mom's house to my current apartment, I was looking for CDs to possibly get back into, and I found this one, and here we are. Some decade later, talking about the band Purple and their album 409.
So, one thing that you spoke about with your experience with the band that, well, we're going to be able to flesh out here is that, you have no idea what they like, due to like the concert experience that you had. You have like, I have no idea what they're saying. I have no idea what these songs are about. And before we actually like dive headfirst into the opening track, which is Wallflower, like one thing that I will detail from my own reviewing point of view is I wasn't really able to find any lyrics. So, like, this is gonna be an interesting review for me. Not that we haven't done a review like this before, where, like, I am not referencing any lyrics, but yeah, it's just gonna be an interesting review because, like, with the exception of, like, a handful of bars throughout the record, I'm right there with you. I have no idea what they're saying, and I'm more going on vibes, but, like, the advantage of listening to it on CD versus your concert experience, like, you're going to be able to hear the instrumentation and what they're actually trying to go for. So, as opposed to, like, just screeching weasel, like, going up and down a guitar, like, and the drums basically sound like a caveman did it. So, anyways, enough descriptors. Matthew, I think it's time that we get at her and we discover what it means to experience 409 while being the color purple. So, Matthew, I'm going to have you kick us off with the track discussion here. And the opening track, like I illustrated a few minutes ago, is entitled Wallflower. Matthew, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ryan. And to echo what you said about finding lyrics, I'm right there with you. This track and I think the other one being Beach Buddy were the only two that I think even exist on Genius. So that's going to make this interesting for the sake of the review. But what you do realize right away with Wallflower is what this band's sound is. You start with this little guitar lick that feels like a homage to Jimi Hendrix, very similar to Foxy Lady. And then you get that hi-hat countdown from Hannah before it goes into this full-fledged, just rock trio grunge-punk sound. The guitars are very chunky and heavy. The drums are just all over the place, and the bass is filling in the spots as best as it can. And it sounds really good. Like, I'm just going to come out and say it sounds really good. It sounds very party rock-ish, and not party rock in the LMFAO sense, a band you have seen, but in the sense of the early 60s garage rock, like the Kingsmen or, early Beatles, stuff like that. So very, very raw, very, very powerful. And then you get the introduction of Hannah Brewer's vocals, which run the gambit from shout to sing, and I think she pulls it off very nicely. I think it is a nice balance between her singing somewhat, regularly on the verses, then when she rips into the shouts towards the end of the verses, it just sounds very powerful. And ultimately, what this song is about is kind of right in the title, honestly. It is about noticing someone at a party who is indeed a wallflower and being like, listen, you think you're able to hide from me just because you want to? Well, you can't. And as she says in the bridge, I think I like you. So it's kind of a romantic, kind of a sly, coy way of trying to interact with someone you might be having the hots for. And the way she delivers that line, particularly, just comes off really, really nicely. The backing vocals from Tyler and Taylor are very, very good as well. I think they complement her very well in the chorus. And it's just a jam, man. Like, it just has this powerful force behind it that really gets the groove going for the record. And it does have a bit of a pop sheen on it, not in the sense that it has, like, you know, production that has, like, keyboards and synthesizers and hand claps, but it just has, like, the structure of it. Like, if you could give this to someone and turn it into a pop song, you could possibly do it. But in this case, it's just a really hard rockin', fun song, and I think a really good way to kick off the record. So right out of the gate, Wallflower does land in my top three. It lands at number 3, and for full disclosure, a top 3 is all I have for 409.
So I'm about to break your heart slightly, not in a, like, you know, mega, like, you know, I'm just gonna come out of here and be like, this is the worst track off the whole record, but, you know, like, you know, showing my hand here, I have a top 3 and a bottom 2 with 409 by Purple. You were like, oh no, don't crap on this this review here. But nah, I feel like even coming into the review, like, you probably would know that I would at least like the record, because what I mean by that is, when we're talking about, like, the opening track here, Wallflower, the band that this kind of reminded me of, like, you used the descriptors of, like, you know, Jimi Hendrix, and you also used the genre of, like, grunge punk, or like whatever they describe themselves on, like, Bandcamp, that's an interesting descriptor. I kind of took this as garage punk in terms of, like, a la, like, Cage the Elephant kind of sense, in terms of, like, just a kind of a nasty kind of, like, groove that, like, this band's going for. And it's not going to be the only kind of groove that they're going to be going for the whole album, but specifically with Wallflower, that was the thing that kind of reminded me of their groove. Now, when we're talking about that groove, it's established right out of the gate with that guitar work from Taylor Busby, and I feel like that guitar work that he's doing here is pretty legit. Love the riff that kicks everything off, and his guitar solo, like, halfway through the track is pretty solid. It comes through quite nicely, so I pretty much did dig that. You were talking about Hannah Brewer's vocals. I feel like the way that she's singing in Wallflower is just so good. She's really, like, when she gets into those nasty kind of moments, like, she's being like a wild child, and she's just basically the embodiment of, like, that person dancing at a party and looking at the wallflower and be like, hey, you're just a wallflower, look how crazy I can be. So, like, you know, I very much appreciated her vocals. Very much of a highlight for me off the track. And yeah, also speaking about, like, the contrasting in vocals, or the vocals in general, the chorus is pretty solid. I love the repeating deadpan vocals of just a wallflower, while Hannah is being like a wildflower. So, like, I very much like that, like you were highlighting as well. So yeah, overall though, like, with Wallflower, I feel like it's a good way to kick off the record, because you're getting a lot of good stuff here. You get the vocals from Hannah, the good guitar work from Taylor, and just, like, an overall good, like, groove that the band's able to establish. Now, Wallflower did not land in a top 3 spot for me. And the kind of range I'm putting in for Wallflower in terms of, like, buckets, it's like, I guess, like, I put good to great song bucket here, and I'm going to make the call here right now. I'm putting it in the great song bucket, because there's some good stuff here, and I very much enjoy it. Yeah, it's a solid way to kick off the record.
It's a very solid way to kick off the record. I'm a little higher on it than you, and I am now officially curious as to see where everything of yours lands, because we only have 10 tracks on this album, and this one did not make your top 3 or your bottom 2, so The numbers will be dwindling with each and every track we go by. But I'm glad you liked Wallflower. To me, I'd say it was between this and another track later on for that third spot. And ultimately, this one has been stuck in my head for the duration of the research process, so it gets the slight nod. But for it being a great song, I don't disagree with you at all. So moving ahead to the next track, Ryan, I throw it to you for Double Nickels.
So this was a solid follow-up to the opener, and previous track kind of reminded me about Cage the Elephant. Weirdly enough, this track here kind of reminded me of like old school Kings of Leon in terms of like feel and vibe of what they were going for. Like right, coming out of the gate, you get that like dizzying guitar lick from Taylor, and again, like his guitar work throughout the track is really solid. Like it's just I very much love that dizzying riff you also get in the chorus. It's just so good. And the whole track is just very energetic and very, very fun, very light. And the vocals here in Double Nickels, I'm not sure if it's Taylor or Joe because obviously it's a male vocalist, it's not Hannah. But either way, the vocals here are good, very high energy and wild. Very much like again embodying that spirit of like I don't know. Like I highlighted Kings of Leon, but like very much like a Little Richard, like just really embodying the emotion of the track, the energy, very much so. And the instrumental bridge in Double Nickels I found to be pretty solid. So yeah. Overall with Double Nickels, like it's a solid follow up to Wallflower. But I'm gonna maybe kind of take it one step down and put it in the good song bucket because of just I felt like Wallflower had a little bit more to offer, and Double Nickels was just it got in and got out. It didn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah, my thoughts on Double Nickels, pretty much the same as yours, honestly. Like, I did appreciate the guitar work on this. It has a very punk surf almost type of vibe to it. And I think, again, the guitars are loud. Hannah's drumming is very solid on here, and the bass is very solid too. And I think the vocals here, I think, are definitely a step in a different direction, obviously with the male vocal. And I think it's pretty solid. I know you said it's compared to Little Richard, and I think you're right about that, or at least in a spiritual sense you are. But yeah, ultimately, to hear him say, I got to get out of here, like that was a real nice highlight on the track for me because it just sort of perpetuates this feeling of just recklessness and youthful abandon that I think they're going for here. So they pull off what they're setting to do. But aside from that, there's really not a whole hell of a lot to write home about. Like, this is a great track to listen to, but there's not a whole lot of meat on this bone. But, sometimes you just need to throw a bone up in the air and hope to catch it, So that being said, ultimately I'm right there with you. I'm putting Double Nickels in the good song bucket because, like you said, it definitely is a good follow-up in that it continues the momentum and it further establishes the sound that Purple is going for.
And I feel like with Purple and 409 as a whole, with it being their debut record, they might have approached the record where like, hey, we're gonna have like our big songs, and then we're gonna kind of just experiment and have a little bit fun with like the other tracks. And with Double Nickels, it's very this track is very much like, hey, let's have fun. Let's kind of like diddle around with like this guitar riff and see what we can make out of it. And that was the end result. But yeah, I feel like we've did a good job talking about Double Nickels. So Matthew, I want to kick it on over to you with the next track being Leche Loco.
Leche Loco. The first thing I noticed about this song was, again, the drum intro. And it's a bit more funkier and it's a bit more syncopated than the other two songs been. Not that they haven't had their syncopated moments, but here it just feels like they're going for a bit more of a down-to-earth beat compared to the guitar-driven nature of the first two tracks. And one thing I will say about this record as a whole, and this track is when I noticed it really for the first time, the production throughout this record is fantastic. Like, the drums are super clear, the bass is nice and tight, the guitar sounds great, and the vocals, for as wild as they can go in range, are wonderfully produced. So the engineering and the production of this record is very, very good. But then you get into the song itself, where it feels like you have sort of a follow up with a vocal from Double Nickels, but then you have the male. I'm not sure which of the guys is the male vocalist on this song, whether it's Tyler Smith or Taylor Busby. I'm thinking it's Busby, but I'm not 100% sure. In either case, the male vocalist and Hannah Brewer are just trading back and forth and harmonizing on the quote-unquote chorus of the song, or the pre-chorus. This is not necessarily a very cut and dry structured song, as it were, because you have one part, then you have another part, and then all of a sudden it changes tempo to something else, which is a little faster, a little bit more similar to what we got with Double Nickels, where Hannah sings and the drums again are all over the place. So yeah, this track, it sounds great. Like, it feels like there's two songs like fighting with each other, almost like a Sharks versus Jets type of scenario, if you want to look at it that way. But yeah, like, I appreciate this track. Like, it's definitely not a skip for me. I don't know if I want to put this in the good song bucket or maybe the mid song bucket. I'll be lenient and go good song bucket because, again, it sounds good, even though there's, it has different moving parts, and ultimately just kind of is what it is.
And for me, with Leche Loco and the vibes that I'm getting from here, because apparently that's the running gag that I got here with with this episode here tonight. The vibes that I'm getting here are actually Jack White of all like artists in terms of like what this is bringing to the table. And what I mean by that is the guitar work from Taylor is again very good. But instead of like velocity based, as opposed to like what Double Nickels brought to the table, this very much has like a funk groove going to it. And I can very much see Jack White doing such a groove in his, his recorded material. So yeah, that was just a vibe that I got from here. The chorus I found to be pretty fun and solid, with more of a, like, you illustrated like there's different parts within the track here. Like in the chorus you get more of a driving feel taking over, and the way that Hannah sings in the chorus is pretty much like, again, top notch. And like shouting out like Hannah, and speaking about vocals as a whole, the dual vocal from the male counterpart and Hannah, like the dueling vocals there, works out pretty well. And I think it was a very interesting take on their vocal setup here so far, because like the opening track you got Hannah doing the main vocals. In Double Nickels we weren't really sure who was doing like the main vocals in there, but now we could kind of get like an intermix, and I felt like that played out pretty well. I'm always a fan of vocal approaches like that. And the one complaint that I did have on Leche Loco is I found the guitar solo to be a little meh, considering what could have been. And I know in the past with like guitar solos, sax solos, any sort of like instrumental solos, I tend to be like, yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. But I feel like as like, my musical taste and like my ears and my brain have like, evolved over how many episodes? How many reviews has this been?
Just the main episodes alone, this one is number 119.
So over like 119 reviews, like my brain has like picked up on like, hey, maybe this could have been fleshed out a little bit more, or hey, this could have been like, more of a developed solo compared to what we've heard in the past, the previous records. But yeah, I did appreciate Leche Loco though walking away from the track. I felt like it was just a fun song. I'm putting it in the good song bucket myself. I wasn't really back and forth between either being good or great or good or mid. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be, and I'm willing to stand to be corrected. I don't have a meh song on this record, but yeah, Leche Loco, I'm putting firmly in the good song bucket.
Okay, so again, for full disclosure, we are now 3 tracks in. You have had one in the great song bucket, or I think, yeah, one in the great song bucket, two in the good song bucket, and we have 7 tracks to go, and you have a top 3 and a bottom 2 to reveal. So again, we're just climbing that roller coaster. We're on the fans' revenge, and we're just going up this mountain. We know what's coming, but we haven't quite hit there yet. So I appreciate the intrigue on that. But yeah, I think we're both on the same boat with Leche Loco. It's got a good groove. I appreciate you comparing it to Jack White because I'm surprised I didn't pick up on that right away either. Especially considering I'm going to be referencing him later on in the review. But that being said, Ryan, I think it's time we get into one of the bigger ones on this album, and that is the track Beach Buddy, The Floor Is Yours.
So with Beach Bunny, the vibe and the groove here established right off the gate with the bass player of all instruments. I've praised the guitar work wholeheartedly throughout the first part of this review here so far. Really, I've been giving Hannah her flowers in terms of drumming, but on vocals she's been killing it. But yeah, the bassist here is really doing a solid job, setting the table and really just establishing a groove. And speaking about writing vibes and everything like that, I felt like the chorus was pretty solid, and yeah, the vocals are very much writing a classic garage rock band sound. But yeah, the couple critiques I have on the track as a whole is I found the first lead up to the chorus to be a bit awkward. And what I mean by that, we have a section where you're having guitar strumming happening, and it just seems like they could have cut that off maybe by 2 or 3 bars, and it would have been more effective. Because you have the vocal line going out, and then you still have the guitar strumming going on, and I'm like, okay, this probably could have used a little bit more proofreading, and it just creates for a little bit of a disjointed listening experience as a whole. So yeah, I did not like that. And then also, the second verse I found to be a little awkward. I get what they were going for, but it's just a little weird. And it almost seems like, hey, let's just kind of throw in just a random bit here where we're just kind of maybe throwing off the groove a little bit. But yeah, it was just a little weird for my taste. And also, speaking about other things that I didn't like off the track, the guitar solo was a bit aimless. It really tried to pop, but really couldn't. But one thing that I will say though, to kind of redeem Beach Buddy as a whole, is the ending was pretty solid. I did enjoy the fake out ending, leading into that slow bass fall. So yeah, that was pretty fun. So yeah, ultimately though, with Beach Buddy, I know it's one of the bigger tracks off the record, but you were illustrating going up into that roller coaster, and we don't know what's about to happen next. Well, guess what, Matthew?
What's that, Ryan?
We've landed into a bottom territory with Beach Buddy here.
How far at the bottom?
I'm calling an audible here because I did have this as my least favorite track off the record, but I'm gonna change it up a little bit. I'm gonna put it in my. I'm gonna swap it with another track. It's my second least favorite track off the record.
So this will be your second least favorite Beachbody?
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that the bells of Fight O'Clock won't have to ring quite as hard, but they are going to be ringing very, very, very loudly to the point where our ears might be ringing until next year. I am shocked by your dissemination of Beachbody because I will say I understand where you're coming from, particularly with the second verse. Let's start with the first thing you critiqued, which was the pre-chorus. I understand that because I think the first few times I had listened to this song, I kind of had the same feeling of it was awkward and definitely sort of had a bit of a lingering effect to it that it felt like something needed to snap in place. But over time, I have come to just forgive that, and I just appreciate it as part of the song because if you count it out, it does mesh quite well. And you mentioned that opening where you have the bass, the drums, both sounding perfect. Because you have that drum intro that really just sort of clicks things in the groove. You get the bass, which is leading the march along with the drums. And then you get to that guitar sound, which to me, for the purposes of this song, is just top notch. Like, if you want a song that sounds like it's going to be about beaches on a beach, performed for people at a beach, that is the guitar sound that you want. That is pure California guitar sound right there. Like, it has the crunchiness to it, but also has a bit of a gliding sense to it. I really think that Busby's work on this track is really, really fantastic. Like, it is the perfect surf type of sound for a modern garage punk type of track. The chorus is great because you have a very poppy sense of all of them singing along and just having, giving it their all. As far as the interlude between the guitarist and the singer, the telephone conversation, the second verse, again, I think I understand where you're coming from, but I don't really agree with that at all. I think it's just kind of cute and very pleasurable. It's definitely very campy in a almost B-52s kind of sense where they're just, conversating for the sake of, hey, we're just a couple of reckless lovers and we were together and now we're not together, but hey, maybe if we get some drinks, maybe we could be together again. Like, it's very, very campy. And the thing I probably disagree with you the most out of what you said is the guitar solo. I think the guitar solo works quite a lot. Like, it doesn't have to pop off as much as it is. Like, it's just got to keep up the momentum. It's just got to keep up those beach vibes where everything is just, like, I will say, watching the video does kind of help because they did shoot this on a beach and they did have just sort of those vibes going along with it. But even without it, like, I could still imagine cranking this up at a beach cookout or a lake cookout and just having it fit right in with the summer playlist. Like, this is one of my favorite summer songs, I think, of, like, all time. So, yeah, I very much disagree with you on this track because, ladies and gentlemen, we have another song in my top 3, and if you may not have guessed it, I will relieve you of the guessing. Beachbody is, in fact, my favorite song off of 409. Good sir, what do you have to say about that?
Tomato, tomato, one person's trash is another person's treasure. Different strokes for different folks. Let's call the whole thing off. No, honestly, though, with Beachbody and the other least favorite track that I have on this record, I'm not saying necessarily that the tracks are like dog shit, because obviously you have, like, I didn't rage out on them, like a la, I don't know, anything off the Wiz Khalifa review, or what was the Brad Paisley review where the guy's talking about being a farmer and he can only farm, like
Cloud of Dust.
Yeah, Cloud of Dust. Yeah, I really crashed out with that. So like, obviously, I'm not gonna really get that like angry about like these two tracks, but there was enough negativity, enough like negative things off in those tracks that I couldn't just be like, I know what it's going for. I'm gonna put it as a mid. Like, there was enough valid critiques within my own brain. But again, like, that's what makes our show like, as like, important and as fun as it is, because we definitely have different takes on different things. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Just defending myself, I guess.
And that's fair. That's fair. Again, we do not have to agree on everything. I know there's a few albums we've done. I'm pretty sure the ones I could think of are Gang of Use, Jelly Roll's in there too, where somebody's favorite track was somebody else's least favorite. And I'm surprised it didn't come to that here, but I'm glad it didn't come to that here because I don't think I would have been ready for that distinction. But yeah, again, I very much respect your opinion about Beach Buddy. I just don't really agree with it at all.
It's fine, man. It's fine. So, moving on to the closing track off of side A of this album here, and that track is 13. And Matthew, I feel like the floor is yours.
The floor is indeed mine with 13, and this song, I know it's credited to Purple, but this is dominated by Hannah Brewer, not just on the drums, but vocally. Like, you just get that intro right away where she's just yelling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 while marching out the snare. Like, that was a nice start. And this is just really this is the kind of track where if you were to see this band live back in the 2010s, like, this is one where you like open up the pit, make your circles, and just try to shove somebody without trying to kill them. Like, this is that kind of like ramp up the crowd type of song where it's just pure vibes of chaos. Lyrically, I guess it's about wanting love or wanting respect, because you get talking about, wanting to go to heaven, but they won't let me in because of sin, because of lust, and, having her saying, please let me in, give me the love. Like, that's about as deep as the lyrics go on this track, but again, it's more about the music, and the music does sound great on this track too, because as good as Hannah is on the drums, especially with the tricky rhythms and time changes you get on the chorus, the band's right there along with her. The bass and guitar are pretty much locked as one throughout the majority of this track, and they just are grooving. Like, I don't know if they had like a structure or said, okay, we're gonna do this, because then you get to that solo section. I dare call it a solo section. I would more call it a freak out section, where they're just, flipping out musically. She's just playing polyrhythms. The guitars are playing polyrhythms. The bass is trying to keep up, and does. It all sounds very, very good, even though there's not a lot of like lyrical depth to this track. Like, it's just, that's not what this track is meant for. This track is just meant to be a get off your feet and just fling yourself into the air, and if someone catches you, fine. If you hit the floor, that's fine too. So yeah, 13 is just a really fun, crazy, quick track. It's under 2 minutes long. And I'm going to put it in cut track territory because it was between this and Wallflower for that third spot. Wallflower just edged it out, but I really appreciate 13 for what it was.
And for me, you described this song as like, the opening up of the pit kind of song, and yeah, that's very much it to a T. I very much love that intense punk rock energy that you get here. Like, coming out of Beach Buddy and going into this, like, my first note here, I'm not even gonna lie, I'm willing to share my screen with you, it says, fuck yeah, the good shit. So, so yeah, going into a little bit of like, other notes other than like, yeah, this is good stuff, man. This is good stuff. Hannah, oh my, Phil Collins, man. Like, she is just so good on vocals here. Like, she's very much, again, matching the energy that this song is asking for. Like, I bring up the comparison later on in the review, but like, it's very much like punk rock, Riot Girl, just very much like she is easily my favorite vocalist off the whole album. I know we get that male counterpart, but it doesn't hold a candle to what Hannah's doing here. Outside of the vocals, the guitar work here, again, is pretty solid. One thing I did enjoy about the guitar work is just a little detail. In the verses, like leading up to the ends of phrases, you get that little chord stinger. I very much appreciated that. And going into the chorus, like the chorus was really good, if you can call it a chorus, honestly. But it's a section where you get like this falling chord hits at the ends of phrases, and again, I love that. That was a nice detail that landed well on my ears. That instrumental breakdown that you highlighted is like everyone doing like polyrhythms. I found that to be pretty solid, and yeah, the ending was a ton of fun with Hannah just counting at the end. Like, it was a fun way to end off the rather short track. So, the only other thing I gotta mention is, like, using the metaphor of the roller coaster here, you were highlighting, like, oh, hey, we're about to go to the tippy top, and we fell into a bottom track with Beachbody. And now we are rising back up on a roller coaster ride here with 13. And, ladies and gentlemen, 13 does land in my top 3. So much so efficiently so amazingly so, that is indeed my favorite track off the whole record.
Wow! All right. I respect the hell out of that, man. I was not expecting this track to land in your top 3, but here we are. Like, it is a fun track. I'm right there with you. The video's fun too. Like, it's just quick, and it's just sort of reminiscent of like those old 1960s, early 70s live on TV things where you have the band that's in front of a green screen and it just has these like psychedelic like things going on in the background. But it's not a whole lot, but it just matches the energy of this song so well. And you're right, it is just that's the one word I take from this track is pure energy. Like, this is just an energetic, just like you said, the good stuff on this track. So yeah, I'm very glad that you appreciate 13 as much as you do and have it as your favorite track, one spot after mine.
So, Matthew, before we dig into the back half of the record here with talking about what it means to be purple in the area code of 409, I have a question for you.
And what is that question, good sir?
Other than what does it mean to be purple in the area code of 409, if the dear listener out there is very much enjoying the episode so far, and they want to help continue to, get more episodes from us, and the way that they do that is help support us, what we do on a week in, week out basis. What are some ways that they can accomplish such task and also connect with us in other platforms? And in addition to all that, if they really are just thinking like, man, I really want them to talk about a Phil Collins album, bring it on. What are some ways that they can accomplish all of those tasks, man?
The first thing they could do is, if they like what they're listening to, they can continue to listen to Hey Listen to This by finding us on their favorite platform of choice. And we are on pretty much all different types of podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Cast. We're also on YouTube as well, where we upload our episodes each and every week in video format. You're not going to see our faces, but they are videos nonetheless. So if you like YouTube for your podcast, that's the place to go. And if you like what you're hearing, and if you think it's something good, do what it does to let us know that, whether it's a 5-star review on your audio sites or if you're on YouTube. Say it with us, folks. Like, comment, and subscribe. Yoda Lady D. So that is how you can continue to listen to us. And if you're listening to us and you think, okay, I like what these guys are saying, maybe I'll share it with a friend through text. Oh, wait, I'm not sure who that friend is, because maybe I have several friends who like Sabrina Carpenter, but they may not be the same friends who like Kings of Leon, or they may not be the same friends who like Miles Davis. Well, if you're looking for a place where you can share this with everybody, don't worry, we got you covered there too. We're on social media through the likes of Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. The username is ttheylisten, or if you just want to look up our name, Hey, Listen to This, it is a blue logo with a black microphone in the center. A logo designed by my awesome co-host who has graphic design as one of his passions. But I'm just being facetious, though. It is a badass logo. And again, TT Hey Listen is the username for all platforms. And speaking of TT Hey Listen, if you want to reach out to us directly, but you do not know us directly, we have an email address that you can reach us out at, and that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. If you want to give us some feedback, whether it's critical or positive, or perhaps you want to, as Ryan suggested, suggest an album for us to review with or without Phil Collins, you could do that as well. We have done listener requests in the past, and we would most certainly like to do that again. So again, ttheylisten@gmail.com is how you can reach out to us directly. ttheylisten is our username on social media, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, or Blue Sky. And if you want to keep listening to us, you can do so on YouTube, Pocket Cast, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or wherever your favorite podcast platform may happen to be. And as always, for those of you who've done that throughout our first 119, 120, 130 probably, considering the discography drafts, number of episodes that we have done on Hey, Listen to This, thank you again. We're not part of some major podcast network. We're just two dudes who are talking about what it means to be purple in the area code 409, whilst ourselves being very white in the area codes of 724, 412, 814, depending on the day, etc., etc., etc. So we appreciate you coming along for the ride with us, and as always, Ryan, I appreciate you for giving me your insights and your understandings of all of this that we do. Whether or not we agree on the tracks we talk about, it is always a fun time.
Absolutely, and right back at you, man. It's always a blast doing these reviews with you, man. And you make an excellent, at times, counterpoint to the points that I make, but also it's equally as satisfying whenever we both are we metaphorically high five through the space waves when we come to agreement on the tracks specifically. And little bit of a spoiler alert. Our next review, we might be metaphorically high-fiving through the space vibes, but when we get to the end of the episode here, I will reveal what I have cooked up for us. That being said, though, I say we just get this gravy train back on the tracks and keep on going with side B of this album / review, and the opening track off of this side is Target, not to be confused with, Target, the store. So, but yeah, I found with Target, not the store, it was a decent way to open up side B of the record. The vibes here with Target are in the lane of straight up garage rock that I found. I wasn't able to find an artist comparison with Target, but I mean it's fine. I mean it's very much still embodying that garage rock sound that you found in the early 2000s. The instrumentals as a whole, they're doing more of a bouncy kind of groove, while Hand is doing her thing vocally. And her vocals, while I'm getting at it, they're kind of fine. She's definitely trying for a different style here, instead of what we heard prior in this album, with her being more vicious, sarcastic, and just very sassy. Here, she's just grooving and really just like, just trying to like, try something different. You do get more of some screaming elements in the chorus, which is always speaks to like, my taste buds, my earbuds. Moving away from Hannah's vocals, the guitar solo was alright. And I found like the ending was fun with the band just crashing out. So with Target here, I guess I'm gonna have to. I mean, I don't have to. I don't have to do anything. But in terms of like track rankings, I feel like we've kind of fell into my first mid track on the whole LP here. Target, it's fine. It's fine, but it's not doing enough for me to be like, you know what? Here's some really good stuff, or it's not doing. It's just doing enough to be keeping out of like, oh, here we go. Here's a third least favorite track off the record. So yeah, Target, it's mid.
Yeah, I was kind of right there with you when I first started listening to this album again, thinking that this track was gonna be in sort of that mid territory. Honestly, though, of all the tracks on this album, I would say this and maybe one other gained more throughout the repeated listens I've gone through. Like, I'm putting this in the good song bucket. Not to say that your assessment wasn't wrong, because pretty much you do get that garage rock sound. I do like the chanting beginning and the way that Hannah sort of counters with that chanting throughout the entirety of the song. I thought that was kind of nice. Drums sound great. Bass sounds good. Guitars sound great. And Hannah's vocals particularly, I thought they were very good in how much range they had. Like, on the opening verse, you get her more or less singing in a lower register than the usual, like, high-pitched yelling or high-sounding vocals that she does do. Like, she's a lot lower here, and it definitely makes a difference, and it does show off her range quite well. But aside from that, yeah, it's basically just another fun track that has a nice, good, solid chorus. And the other thing I'll note about this track is the guitar solo. And this is going to sound weird. I think the guitar solo sounds wrong, and I mean that as a good thing. Like, the way it sounds, it just feels like something's off, like it's way, like, too tension, and it's just like someone had to run and be like, oh, that's right, I got to do a guitar solo, and just, here it is, and hope this works. Like, it just feels off in that kind of weird way, but its offness works, and it's very hard to describe in a way other than you have to listen to the track for yourself to experience it. But yeah, overall, I dug Target, and I'm putting in the good song bucket because it's a good song.
Fair enough, man, fair enough. And it's interesting. I'm going to use that terminology later on in, like, our reviews. Probably not in this one, but I'm gonna save that in like my I'm gonna put that in my toolbox in terms of like music reviewing, where I'm like, hey, this sounds wrong, but it's not a bad thing. So yeah, without any further ado though, are you ready to kick it into the next track, which is Head on the Floor?
Yes, Head on the Floor. And I'll start by saying this about Head on the Floor. Once again, the production and the engineering on this track is very good. The guitars sound very nice. The vocals sound alright. The drums sound good. Everything sounds like it is where it's supposed to be. That being said, for the life of me, I cannot remember this song, like, at all. Like, even just thinking about it now. Like, I remember certain elements of it where I know that the guy is singing. I know that Hannah is singing sort of counterpart with her ohs. Like, it chugs along solidly and nothing sounds out of place. I did feel like, though, the intensity of the entire album sort of went down a little bit with this one. Like, to me, this track is easily the most inconsequential of the tracks on this entire album. I don't mean to say it's bad. It's not a bad track by any means. Like, it's not a skip if I were listening to this album front to back, but it just feels like, compared to Wallflower or even Target, which I think, in a sense, chugs at the same pace as Head on the Floor does, Yeah, like to me, like this just feels like very, very, very much an album track. It's probably the only album track I have on the entire record. Like this is the only track where I don't really have, again, a whole lot of memory of it except for a few small blips because everything else dwarfs it by comparison. It's not a bad track, but very inconsequential.
And I think that goes back to what I said earlier on in the review here with like how Purple might have structured this album here, where they're like, "Hey, we have like the cornerstone tracks, and let's just kind of just fill out the edges, and maybe like let the cornerstone tracks really stand on their own right." But for me, with Head on the Floor, I mean, I kind of remember. I think I remember it a little bit more than you do, but not by much, honestly. A couple of the notes that I do have here. I did appreciate the guitar work from Taylor here. It's pretty great. I love the riff that he's playing and the verses. I found that to be pretty entertaining. The vocals in this track are pretty solid, very much in that garage rock kind of sound. And talk in like for going down the rabbit hole of the vocals though. Like skipping into the guitar solo, I did enjoy the use of Hannah's vocals on top of the guitar. Like I found that to be pretty entertaining and pretty like it was a nice touch. I very much appreciated that. And also the backing vocals as a whole are a nice touch from Hannah. Like very nice, very entertaining. And one moment that I did specifically remember within Head on the Floor, you got the drop down from like about halfway through the track. I found that to be pretty solid, and I love how that kicks into the guitar solo. And I found like the guitar solo here was pretty great. Yeah. Overall, like it was probably one of the better guitar solos off the whole record. So yeah, I'm putting Head on the Floor. I'm gonna go good song bucket because it's definitely not a mid kind of track, and it's not doing enough to stick with me to be a great song. So yeah, good song bucket it is, man.
And that's fair. Again, this is one of those ones where catch me on a different day, I might find something more to remember about it than I do right now. Because again, it is not a bad track. It's just it did like almost absolutely nothing for me except maintain some slight semblance of momentum, or at least semblance of a sonic palette. Like it didn't raise the intensity or keep the energy by any means, but again, it's not bad. And if you are appreciative of elements compared to me, I am one to respect that. Also, I have noticed for those looking at their scorecards, we have 3 tracks to go, and Ryan still has 3 slots to fill out, which are his other bottom track, his least favorite track, and 2 out of his top 3. So if we're continuing with the roller coaster metaphor, hold your lunch because this is going to be a bumpy, bumpy finish by all means. And for full disclosure, I have 1 song left in my top 3 that we have left out of the final 3. So with that being said, Ryan, I will kick it over to you for track 8, which is simply entitled Liquor.
So I don't have a whole lot of notes about Liquor here because it's one of the shorter tracks off the record. But what I do have, though, is notes that detail an experience. And that experience is very much so in the lane of one that a human being has. No, sorry, I'm just gonna keep vamping on for ad nauseum here. No, I very much enjoyed this track. The guitar work from Taylor here was great, but also for the first time in the record, Hannah's bringing the thunder on drums. Very much love them two working together to create like such a ferocious and like intense groove. And like I love how the verses were structured. Like the vocals are so manic, and the way that the instrumentation interweaves with the vocals, it kind of reminded me of, and I could be totally out of place when I say this, but it kind of reminded me of like Little Richard or James Brown in terms of like their relationship to the instrumentals, whether it's like trying to ride off the energy that the instruments are bringing to the table, or just like how they interplay with one another. And like I very much enjoyed that. And yeah, the only other thing I got to say about Liquor in terms of like things I liked about the song is the wee woos in the track were a nice fun touch. I very much enjoyed that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are once again riding high on the roller coaster with Liquor, because Liquor is my second favorite track off the whole record.
And for me, I'm surprised you were invoking the likes of Little Richard or James Brown on this, because I don't completely disagree, but to me, this track starts and ends with just the... I've talked about this before on the show. The idea of a song creating an image in your mind as you're listening to it. And this song very much does that, because you could very much imagine these guys playing this song in the corner of a very crowded party where there is plenty of the titular liquor. Everybody's getting sloshed. Everybody's ready to party. Everybody's ready to dance. Everybody's ready to do other things. And it is just a giant frickin' party. And that's what this song sounds like. This song itself is a giant frickin' party. You mentioned Hannah's drums sounding wild and locked in at the same time. I completely agree. The guitar work is the driving force on this song. I completely agree. And the vocals are really nice too, because you do have, like you said, that frenzied delivery. That almost sounds like a guy like holding your shoulder, like giving you advice on what to do at the party while he's singing the song about the party at the party. So yeah, like it just, everything flows so well. I do like the oohs too. And for such a short track, much like 13, the energy is nonstop in your face and it sounds great. So, yeah, all I have else to say about, Liquor is that much like you, I have this in my second favorite track on the album. Eat Your Heart Out, Blink-182. This is a party song.
You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? That's the sound of me and Matthew metaphorically high-fiving through the space waves of, like, you know, the interwebs here, because we are in lock with the second best track off the whole record. So yeah, I'm very much glad that you enjoyed this track as much as I did, honestly. And I still, like, I don't know, I still have an affinity for the party song by Blink-182, based on my past experiences of playing Rock Band with it. But, you know, again, this is how public debate should be held. To each his own. We're each having our own lived experiences. As long as we can speak to it within our own parameters, we're totally fine. But with that being said, Matthew, are you ready to shuffle on into the penultimate track off the record, with it being Newborn?
Yes, Newborn, the penultimate track off of 409. And much like Target, this was the other song I had, which kind of gained a lot of presence with each listen with me. Because at first I was kind of like, okay, this track's all right. You know, the guitars sound good. Hannah's vocals are nice. But then I kept listening to it and I just realized just kind of how sonically very good this track is. Because I would say, even though this is not a blues track by any means necessary, it definitely has the bluesiest vibes of any song off the whole album. Like, I don't mean bluesy in the Muddy Water sense or the John Lee Hooker sense. I'm talking bluesy like a Black Keys or even a Jack White, which is where he comes back into the fray of our discussion here. Because I feel like this is just a very just guitar-soaked, dark room type of bluesy type song. And Hannah's vocals here, she does not shout at all. For the most part, like, there may be a couple moments where she does, but ultimately she just sticks to singing, and her voice sounds great, man. Like, it just rides along, almost like her and the guitar work on this track are one in a tandem, and just sort of interplaying with each other on the sonic level. I could not tell you for the life of me what one single word is in this song as far as a lyric, because it's the vocals are so out there. And I think they're out there on purpose just to create that sort of live in-person type feel. But again, it just sounds very good. The drums sound solid, the bass sounds solid, and the guitar work, again, is very, very good. So yeah, this track gained a lot of presence with me, so much so that I'm actually going to elevate it to the great song bucket. I don't think it's quite as the same level of cut track territory as 13 is for me, but it's about maybe one slight step down from that.
So before I utter one word here, with my thoughts about Newborn, you know that I have my least favorite track and my third favorite track to be revealed. I only have 2 tracks. Do you want to take a stab at what my least favorite track is going to be?
Knowing you, knowing your personality, and knowing what your picks for tracks on this album have been so far, I'm going to say that this track here, Newborn, is your least favorite.
And I will reveal that shortly after this brief break. No, just kidding. And this podcast is sponsored by Raycon. No, just kidding. No. In all honesty, though, getting into the nuts and bolts about Newborn, like the guitar work from Taylor here is pretty solid. Overall, though, like I'm gonna give him his flowers here because we're almost at the end of the album here. Like his guitar work throughout the whole record is pretty good. He's definitely gonna be him and Hannah, like her vocally, him on the guitar, like it's pure money every single time. So like in the riff and groove that he establishes at the start of the song with a Newborn is a solid bedrock, and I did appreciate what Hannah does here vocally. She does do a solid job. So why is this my least favorite track off the record, you might be asking. And Matthew's just like, vindication! But yeah, my main issue with this song is it is a one-trick pony, and it just rides that groove throughout the whole song, and it doesn't do anything different. It doesn't do anything to kind of make it like, like I guess like there is a verse or two where it tries to change up the main groove, but you can't really tell like what Hannah's singing about. And just because you kind of change the direction of the sound here a little bit doesn't mean like it's different in general, because then you just go right back into that swash and groove throughout the whole the rest of the track outside of the guitar solo. And yeah, it's still good, but like with Newborn here, I just found my mind wandering and not really caring what's going on here throughout the track, and that's a bit of a problem. And I guess the only other nitpick that I have about the track is the guitar solo was a bit aimless and recorded pretty awkwardly. And the way that I'm talking, what I'm talking about is you get the vocals, if I can remember correctly, or like the vocals were just some sort of like instrument, and then you get the guitar solo, and it's almost just like it's surrounding the vocals. And it's not like, being one and the same. Like, it's almost like it was just produced very differently. Like, there's a very distinct wall of sound that you're experiencing here. And that could have just been the byproduct of, hey, we're a new band. This is our debut record. Or, hey, we're literally recording this using Pro Tools and we don't know any better. Or it's like a couple other different reasons. But still, that is a critique that I did have. So, yeah, hate to say it, man. Newborn is my least favorite track off the record.
I understand that. I obviously don't agree, but I can kind of see where you're coming from, because it does seem like a very one-note song in just it sort of riding that guitar groove throughout 3 minutes and change, and nothing else really elevates aside from Hannah's vocals. And like I said, I think her vocals are very good, but they may also be seen as one trick. Yeah, like to me, what made this song stand out, though, is just, again, the sonic palette from which I think it comes from. Like, again, I can envision this, like, where this song is being played and how it's being played. Like it's a dark room. It's in a little dinky club somewhere. There's maybe some red lights going up or something like that. Like I can envision how the song is being played in the perfect setting for it. But at the same time, I get that, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and clearly in this case, it is not yours, and I respect that. But what that does mean is that the flip side, it being your top three is about to be completed with the final track, which is DMT. And with that, I will let you take this one first.
So, yeah. This was a fun way to close off the album. This is definitely one of the bedrock songs, the cornerstone songs off the record here, and for a good reason. Well, one, it is the longest song off the record, but two, like there's just a lot of fun songs here. You get the best of like all the different worlds that the group was trying to bring to the table here throughout the whole record. Like just right out of the gate, the opening vocal like bit was hilarious. Like you get like a very matter of fact kind of gentleman being like, I like to party and wear bikinis, and I'm like, oh, you do? Okay. Well, I guess we all like to celebrate Hanukkah in a different way, I guess. But just outside of that vocal sample, though, the vibe here is very much like, I guess like. They're taking the best parts about the record and putting it into one song. Like I went with the Riot Girl garage rock kind of sound, but I don't think that's an apt descriptor. Like it's just such a good tight groove. I'm just gonna say garage rock as a whole. Everything's very tight, very good. The way that Hannah, again, she's just completely owning this track vocally. It's just so good. Whether she's like, screaming vocals or just singing like very sassy, very sarcastic bars, like, I very much dig it. If I can remember the lyrics correctly, like she mentions bars about like, a Christian marrying an atheist, and she likes to smoke or do like drink and wear bikinis or party and wear bikinis or like do something and wear bikinis. I very much appreciated that. The guitar work from Taylor here again is pretty good, and once again Hannah's doing a good job bringing excellent musicianship on the kit as well. I very much appreciated that. The guitar solo was pretty tight and solid. And also about like halfway through the track, you get the instrumentals and the vocals are just hitting those beats like very focused, and it is just so nasty. And I'm here for it every day of the week, man. And just one of the note I have here is that the na-na-nas at the end of the track just complement the whole experience just so very well. So yeah, DMT, easy third favorite track off the whole record for me.
I agree with you that this is a great track to close the album with, because, like you said, it does feature a lot of elements that we've already experienced on other tracks. And you start with, again, that opening line, I agree with you, is just perfectly hilarious. But then you get the first half of the song where Hannah talks about liking to... I think the one line specifically goes, I like to think and drink bikinis. Like, she's just, again, having a wild time and just sort of showcasing that youthful, reckless abandon that the band is going for throughout this whole track. And she says, I am a Christian and an atheist. I don't like a certain kind. And, hey, it's a feeling I just choose. Like, to me, like, this is the band's thesis statement. Like, this is their final, like, dissertation before trying to graduate college. Like, this is like what their whole worldview is, and it just comes across really well because I agree the guitars are great, the drums are great, bass is great, and then you get into the second half of the track where things take a bit more of a wilder turn. To me, it's like if you took the solo section or the freak out section in Purple and tried to make an entire song out of it. That's what the second half of this track is, and it does sound very, very good. I personally thought it overstayed its welcome just a tiny hair. If I had one small critique about this track, is that I appreciate the first half of it more than the second half. But the second half of it does sound great in and of its own right. Like you said, you get the na-na-nas, you get Hannah just really cranking up her vocal range. And again, the guitars and the bass are just flailing everywhere, and I mean that as a compliment. And then you just get that last little bit where you get the Decelerando, you just get the crashing waves of the guitars at the end, and it just sort of fades out into chaos, like you just, like, everybody fell on the floor at the party, and one of those things that fell was also guitar, and that's what it sounds like. Again, this is all compliment. So yeah, DMT to me is one of the stronger tracks on the album for a reason. So much so that, much like the track before it, Newborn, I am putting it in the great song bucket because, again, it is a great way to close off this album.
I very much agree with that. I mean, obviously I'm a little bit higher on the track than you, but yeah. Without any further ado, the dear listener out there, and you, dear sir, might have noticed that with 409 by Purple, we've come to the end of the review. We've had 10 tracks up. 10 tracks have been smacked down. We've fully experienced what it means to be purple in the area code of 409. And by filling out our scorecards, we only have one thing left to say.
We did it.
We did indeed do it. And I'm going to run that joke once more into the ground. We discovered what it means to be purple in the area code of 409. So I'm going to go first with my overall thoughts and feelings about the record as a whole. This was a interesting record for me to dive into. Obviously, I had my two least favorite tracks for just a couple different reasons. But the group as a whole kind of does remind me of a classic Bandcamp like artist that I would just discover and be like, you know what? Yeah, I can dig this. I can maybe throw this into my Bandcamp collection. I can really appreciate what's going on here. And I can definitely revisit this on multiple different listens. And I'm like, with the next Bandcamp Friday coming up here in early May, I might actually do such things. But yeah, I just very much love the different kind of like grooves that the band's bringing to the table. Like, I've drawn many comparisons throughout this review here. I compared them to Jack White, Kings of Leon, Cage the Elephant, Little Richard, James Brown. Like, all over the kind of spectrum here. And also, I've given my flowers to Taylor on guitar, Hannah on vocals, and I've also complimented her drum work throughout like just a couple different tracks. So yeah, it was an overall good time for me to experience this record, and I thank you for bringing it to my attention. So for me, I'm gonna give 409 by Purple a solid 7 out of 10.
So, as I mentioned in my overview and my story about seeing these guys at the Smiling Moose, when I saw them, it was so loud, so clangy, so sonically unpleasant that I felt robbed. I felt like these guys deserved a second chance, and I deserved a second chance listening to them. Which, again, thank you to my classmates from The Gentlemen, Ian, Matt, Dave, we remember, for allowing me to experience not just you guys in concert, but these guys as well, because I was able to pick this album up, listen to it, give this album a fair shake, and I've been shaking it since that day, because this album is fun, man. Like, you get highlights for me like Beach Buddy, which just sounds like a perfect summer song, 13, which just blasts energy throughout, Liquor, doubly so, Wallflower, which just has a nice, catchy garage rock pop sheen to it. And even lesser tracks like Newborn and Target and DMT, like, they're not that much lesser. And on another given day, like, they are perfect to crank out, whether you're at a barbecue or driving down the interstate. Like, this is, we talked about it earlier. The purpose of this record is not to dissect, major, melancholy feelings or discuss poetry. This is an album to get you off your ass and moving, and it does exactly that for 33 minutes. So you really can't ask much more of these guys other than to crank it up and keep going. So yeah, I really enjoyed this album quite a bit. I'm a little higher on it than you. I'm gonna give my rating for 409 by Purple an 8.5 out of 10.
All right. So my 7 and your 8.5 out of 10 average out to be, oh man, what would that be? That would be a 7.75 out of 10 because math works for everyone. It does not hate, it does not discriminate, it's just numbers. Get over it. My next album recommendation, though, with 409 by Purple, I'm going to go in the lane of a artist that I discovered on Bandcamp and definitely does have that garage rock kind of feel. Not so much leaning into what Purple's doing in here so much, but still is like, within that same kind of like ballpark, same kind of like, musical heritage, for lack of a better descriptor. And that album and that artist is Sincere Engineer, and that album is Bless My Psyche. Excellent artist. That's one of my favorite albums that she has released over the years that I've been a fan of hers. So yeah, if anybody out there has never listened to Bless My Psyche by Sincere Engineer, I wholeheartedly endorse that recommendation, man.
I do too, man, because I have yet to treat myself to the full listen of a Sincere Engineer album, but I was definitely thinking of them quite a bit when thinking about what bands Purple sounds like, and that was one of the ones I came to. Like, I'm so glad you introduced me to Landline so long ago. It's still a bop to this day for me. However, for my next album recommendation, I'm once again going into the Hey, Listen to This archives and picking an album that we talked about a little over a year ago, I want to say, maybe a couple years ago, because I was thinking about certain albums that might fit in this category, whether it be like a Blink-182 or even a Sweet Pill, which would have been the other artist we would have discussed this week because they played at the Roxy a couple years ago. But instead I was like, hard guitars, male and female vocals, and just a youthful abandon and chaos. What album does that remind me of? Oh yeah, an album I just listened to for the first time in a while a couple weeks ago, that being Surfer Rosa by the Pixies. That album, very much in the same category as this one, just fun, just very adolescent in nature, and just loud, cranking instruments throughout. It's a little darker than 409, I would say, but definitely worth a listen and a re-listen. So yeah, Surfer Rosa by Pixies is my next album recommendation.
So, ladies and gentlemen, to summarize our overall rating and our next album recommendation, our overall rating with 409 by Purple is a solid 7.75 out of 10. I recommended Bless My Psyche by Sincere Engineer, and Matthew recommends Surfer Rosa by the Pixies. I think, honestly, we both recommend both albums wholeheartedly because, I very much applaud you for coming up with that Pixies comparison. And, I think I might be due for adding Surfer Rosa into my record collection, but I still have yet to pick up the Lauryn Hill record. So, one record at a time. That's the way you got to live your life, man. So, yeah, if you've enjoyed, dear listener, if you got to this point in this review, and if you haven't listened to 409 by Purple, well, what are you doing? Pause this review right now, go listen to it, come back, and then you can understand the rest of what I'm about to say. If you've enjoyed that record and you're looking for something else, check out the 2 records that we both recommend. So, yeah, man. This was a fun review. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, man. I very much enjoyed it.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad you appreciated this record for what it is. I'm glad I was able to pick it up again and listen to it and give it a full dissection because, again, it is just a fun record from start to finish. And, again, I'm so glad I gave them a second chance after their first impression left me wanting more. And, again, I don't think that's so much their fault as it is the lack of padding at the now defunct Smiling Moose in south side of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Although they do have restaurants and other places located in Grove City and Cranberry, not endorsing them or making this a commercial, just facts. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. So there's one thing we have to settle up before we officially drop this review into a sinkhole, into its bedtime. Are you ready for what I have cooked up here for our next musical journey, man?
I am ready, and my hands are ready because I am ready to, as you say, high five you through the space. What do you got cooked up for us this time around?
All right, so I was thinking that it was funny that you were talking about like how 409 by Purple. The purpose of that album is not to really go into like poetry or any like heady kind of subject material or like kind of like very thick themes or like very dense stuff. Like it was very much a lighthearted rock album. So we're gonna do a complete pivot away from what we just did, and we're gonna go into very thick albums. And these two albums are albums that we've both hinted at doing countless amount of times on Hey Listen to This. So I'm just gonna let you know now, no matter what you choose, you are gonna be happy. So the way I'm gonna have you choose between these two albums is I'm gonna have you pick between the Best Picture winners for the years that these albums were released.
Okay, all right. This is all right. I'm curious. What do you got cooked up, sir?
All right, so the first Best Picture winner that I have for you is Birdman or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. And the other Best Picture winner is Green Book.
Man.
Before you even pick, do you have an idea what these two albums are?
I think I have an idea of what one of them is just based on the description of teasing. And I don't know if I'm going to pick it, but as far as the movies, I'm going to pick The Green Book.
The Green Book. All right, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, Tyler, the creator, has finally entered the Hey Listen to This chat room. And the way that he's entered this chat room is through the album Igor.
Oh, let's go! Yes.
Oh,
yes.
man.
Give me that high five right up there. We're high-fiving through space. Oh, this is going to be a good one next week.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I'm very much excited to finally dive into Tyler's Igor, and I know it's been a record that we've been kind of wanting to do for a while, and I think we're finally ready because it's a very very complicated record. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen out there, if you have never listened to Igor by Tyler the Creator, or if it's been a hot minute, because honestly, it might have been because he's released a handful of records since then. Make sure you check out that album before next week's review. That way you can have opinions about the record, and therefore you can have opinions about the opinions that me and Matt are going to be bringing to the table. So, yeah. I think we're ready. I think based on the album choice here for next week's review, I think I don't need to ask the question, are we still friends?
No, but I do think you've hit the target.